your world stays small. Like you don't grow in your comfort zone.
Have someone on your side, like have a hype buddy, have someone that you call in Ibiza, like, you know what I mean? Like someone like that is always going to help you.
Hello and welcome Sarah and Megan to People First, the Young Careers podcast. Today we're going to be unpacking something that I think impacts a lot of people, and that is imposter syndrome. For listeners, I'm joined by Sarah Burrows, who is a career change coach, and of our very own Megan Corless, Head of People and Culture at Manpower UK. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah, and welcome back, Megan.
Thank you.
For listeners, I would just really love if you could just introduce yourselves. Yeah, tell us about you, the job that you do, and sort of what's led you here today, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'll come to you first as our external Sarah, come on.
So I'm Sarah Burrows. I'm a career change and career growth coach. So I help people to discover a job that they love, especially if they feel stuck, if it's something they fell into, to find something that they actually enjoy, that they feel good in, feel confident in. And then also helping people to grow in their roles up into leadership development, taking kind of aligned action to where they want to go in their careers.
Love that. That was extremely beautifully put, Sarah. So it was. I'm expecting the same from you now, Megan.
No pressure. So I'm Megan Corless, and as you said, I'm the head of people and culture at our Manpower brand. This is a role that I've always wanted, and it focuses on the people in our brand. It's like strategic initiatives around performance, development, engagement, and to put it in a really simple way, what makes it such a great place to work.
Great, that was good. And for listeners, you're back for season 2. Megan was our very first guest, and that time you were head of colleague experience at Brook Street. So I would love to know, in the last, I think it's about a year, just over a year since we spoke, what the change is between those two roles and if there is any difference.
I've had a very busy year, if I'm honest, because I did that job, and then so I was head of colleague experience at Brook Street, and then I went into a HR services role for Manpower Group, and now I'm head of people and culture at Manpower. So it's been quite a journey, to be honest. Did feel quite guilty applying for my current role, given that I'd only done my last one for 5 months, but it is my dream job, and I knew that I would not forgive myself if I didn't at least put myself in the running for it. So I went for it and I got it.
Great, perfect. And to our episodes on imposter syndrome, as I've said, so I would love to come to you both and ask you, in your own words, to you, what imposter syndrome means. And I'm going to come back to you, Megan, first.
I think, this is, I suppose, my personal experience of it. It's very similar to feelings of like anxiety and a lack of confidence, and feeling out of place, feeling like, do you deserve your spot at whatever opportunity it is that you're at, and feeling like you probably know the least in the room, and just not quite feeling your usual sparkling self. Yeah,
that's something I think a lot of people obviously can relate to as well. And from your perspective, Sarah, how would you define it?
I think it's quite similar. It's that space of, I don't feel like I should be in the room, and I feel like someone's always maybe just about to call me out. Someone's going to say, oh, no, you don't know that, what you're talking about. And it's that constant state of uncertainty and I suppose it's that lack of confidence and self-belief in terms of owning and having that legitimate space of being there.
Yeah, and legitimacy is like a big thing that I want to talk about and want to come to. But I think just to bring it all back, I think I've read before that a lot of anxiety centres around either getting hurt or getting in trouble. And I definitely fall into the getting in trouble category. And to what you said, it's that someone is going to come and say, boo, I've got you, you're not here for this and you're not right for this role, or something like that. Is that something that you would both agree with? Is that something that you have felt personally in your career?
Yeah, I mean, from what you were saying then, it kind of linked in something that I know I personally suffer with, of like that whole fear of failing and what will happen if I get caught, not knowing the answer. And so sometimes it can make you not be your best self. It can make you stay quiet when you do actually have a really good idea. And I think it is kind of on employers to recognise that and support people with it.
Yeah. And to you, Sarah, would you say this is like something that you've experienced that has sort of helped you coach others on this?
Yeah, for sure. I think confidence affects all of us, and that's really what it is. It's just in that very specific setting, and it is that fear of failure. It's that someone's going to, and the fear of judgment as well, that I'm worried that someone else is going to say to me and they're going to judge me, and it's everyone else's judgment in the room about whether or not I should be speaking up and whether or not that's worth saying, and is that like am I qualified to say that, and are they all going to judge me if it's not the right thing? Like, I suppose, like you said, it keeps people really quiet in a space that, especially actually, it's usually really unjust, and they should be saying the things, they should be sharing their knowledge.
Yeah, of course, because everyone has a place, and they're in their role for that skill set and stuff. I don't know, Megan, if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that employers need to think about when they are developing people and supporting their leadership journey and just their constant growth, because there's something that one of our old managing directors said once that really, really resonated with me around, like, when we promote people and people are stretching themselves, we forget to support them on the journey of going from expert to learner. And that can really mess with your head. If you've been, you've been the top one at your job, you've done so well at it that you've got promoted, and all of a sudden you are the most junior and probably least experienced person in the room, and that journey mentally is something that actually I think we need to take more responsibility for supporting people with.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, because I've got a client at the moment and she's just been through that journey, and when we first started working together, she's like, I'm not sure if it's the role or my mindset. And I was like, talk me through the role. She's like, I'm doing this, this and this. And I was like, oh, so you've stepped up into a leadership role and you've got a lot of change management. Have you been supported through this? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a solid manager? Are you recognising that this is growth for you? There's a growth area. There's maybe things that you don't know. And she suddenly was like, oh no, I don't think I'd ever thought about it. I've just kind of moved into that position and not given that time and space to recognise that it was a leap. And I mean, I love that phrase, like, it's a growth phase. You're a learner from the expert, which I love. Give that space, give that time, and recognise that it's going to be different and it's going to be difficult and it's going to be tough, and there's lots of things that you can do to help with that, but you've got to give that space to it.
Yeah, and do you have an example of the top of your head of something that we can do, or maybe something that we could implement if we are feeling those early stages of I'm not supposed to be here,
Yeah, there's a couple of different things. In this case, for her, it was actually going on, and for some people it's courses and actually qualifying and getting some of that kind of practical tools of, for her it's project management and leadership training. She stepped into a leadership role that she's not been in. So it's very much kind of, I'd feel more confident if I felt more qualified and sort of educated in that space. That's my growth area. And then we're doing lots of work on mindset, confidence, kind of recognising that you deserve that place, that inner work as well, of how can you remind yourself that you are deserving of this place and you totally are qualified to be here and you've earned it and you've got the experience. And some of that is recognition that you're keeping yourself small as well. So for her, kind of working on actually speaking up early, challenging yourself, stepping out your comfort zone and saying, this is really uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it anyway, rather than letting it win, and having that awareness that how it's showing up for you, and so not letting it win.
I saw something on this last year, and I'd say it's the biggest shift I've had in terms of my own imposter syndrome. And it was a mindset shift, and it was like reframing the feelings of imposter syndrome to a sign that you're doing something brave. You don't feel those feelings in your comfort zone, but you don't grow in your comfort zone. And so much of your job satisfaction and your purpose and the excitement that you get from work comes from development and achievement and all of those like wonderful things that make you feel proud of what you do. But to get any of those things, you need to step out of your comfort zone, and for some people that does involve dealing with these feelings of imposter syndrome. So just seeing that reframe, like I say, is probably the biggest shift I've had in my own feelings towards it, because now I recognise that's why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, but that it will be worth it and that I will have a new skill.
Yeah. Reframing being scared.
Yeah.
Like there's not, we negatively associate like nervousness and we think it's a bad thing. And actually I love that. It reframes. So part of the work I do is all about language that we use, how it makes us feel. So you associate something with being bad, you're never going to feel good about it.
Yeah.
And you actually say, I'm being brave, I'm being courageous, I'm challenging myself. It helps you to be more courageous, to step out and to feel okay about that space. And then the more you do it, the easier it feels.
Yeah.
And it's practice.
I've spoke a lot about my own personal experience on this podcast, and I come from a very deprived area in Northern Ireland where unemployment is at its peak, really. I grew up on benefits. I'm the first generation to go to university. I didn't really ever think that people had jobs, if that makes sense. And the peak of that would have been like maybe working in an office in the town, or like if you had a really good job in like a supermarket or something like that. Like that was the peak of employment for me until I was probably in my teens, and I only have 4 GCSEs and stuff like that. You know, I hadn't really done well, but throughout my career, I have always tried to be really nice and like embed myself in a business and learn from people and do all those things. And subsequently, I've been headhunted for every job I've ever had, which is it's something I gloat about at 3 a.m. with my friends. But I was in a position about a month ago where I had been procured for a new role in Manpower Group. And I rang a friend of mine called Megan Corless, and that's someone I see as like a mentor, I guess, throughout my career, because we've talked candidly about our careers and the things that we want and these sorts of things. So Megan called me from Ibiza, guys, from Ibiza in Spain.
Love that.
Drunk at Cafe Mambo.
just
5 cocktails in.
Commitment to it, though.
But we went through every single soft skill that was on the job description, which Megan felt I excelled in. And sometimes you just need those people to like knock it over the line. Like, who cares if you don't have the experience? Like, do this for the experience, if that makes sense. And obviously I've got a period of time now where before I start the new role, and I know for a fact that I will be crying up against the wall, worrying about things that I can do. But going from expert to learner is exactly the right way to put it. And I think my advice for someone who has taken a new role is reach out to those people that you do like and that you are working with, or maybe even are doing that job. I think there has to be some sort of onus on you to ask for help, or you to bridge that gap, rather than doing what Megan mentioned and sort of waiting for someone senior to recognise in that. And I think there needs to be a give and take. So I don't know if any of you would disagree with that, whether you would agree with that or...
I would agree, but there's something that you said earlier that sparked a thought about your upbringing, and I find the psychology of this really interesting, because so many people experience it. It's like over half of women, about a third of men do experience these feelings. And I am not a psychologist, but I do think it's very, very connected to your self-confidence and your self-belief and your self-esteem, all of which are developed as a child.
That's it.
And I think it is, though, whether or not you have those natural feelings and those natural levels of confidence. And it's very, again, the self-esteem thing is tied to what other people think of you. I do think that's what drives a lot of this, and I think probably is one of the reasons anyone who's feeling it may be able to kind of connect back and think, yeah, we recognise that in myself. I
actually texted my mum earlier before we were coming to film, because I have a vivid memory of doing my GCSEs and my maths teachers. And I quote, he said, "If you stood in the playground with your arms out, not even the birds would roost on you." Like, as in, I couldn't even be a scarecrow, right? And I've messaged mum to ask what his name was, and she didn't know either. And I was thinking, that fella, like, I can't even remember who he was. Do you know what I mean? And he had such an impact on like how I viewed myself, going from like maybe age 15 to like age 25, and I can't even remember the fella's name. Do you know what I mean? And do you think that's something that happens to a lot of young people? Do you think there is a pivotal moment in early in their career, or I don't know, Sarah, with people that you've worked with, is there usually a catalyst that has meant that this person feels this way or maybe feels a little bit insecure?
There's 2 things on this. One is, and I don't know the research off the top of my head, but there's a piece it's very gendered. It's, I assume, relatively old, and it's about girls and their upbringing, and parents are like, oh, be careful, oh, don't do that, or wait to put your hand up in class before you say something. And that's sort of instilled in young girls specifically, according to the research, at a relatively young age. And then also workplace can have a real knock-on effect on people. So I work with a lot of people that have come out of a workplace where their managers kind of nitpicked and pulled apart. And some of the behaviour that I witnessed of like secondhand through my clients is horrendous. And so it can be young, but it can also be workplace related. If your manager's like, oh, that was terrible, oh, you've misspelt that wrong in this 100-page document, always unpicking your failures, that sensation of worry is sort of validated because someone is going to call you out, someone is going to judge you. So twofold, it can be really young, but also can happen at the workplace. So I get a lot of people who we rebuild their confidence by having those kinds of calls in Ibiza, 5 cocktails deep, which we love, we're here for. And they don't have people like that. They have the opposite. And so that's where they're coming out of. We do a lot of work to kind of ground back into, actually, you deserve it. You know, just because that one person's knocked you down all the time go and find somewhere else that makes you feel much better.
Your employer, and I'd say even more than your employer, your manager is such an important part of your career development. Like, not too dissimilar to you, really. Like, I'm the first person in my family that's gone to uni, like first person that's kind of, I suppose, right, really gone for a real like career job. I'm doing a job now I never even imagined was in my scale of ability when I was growing up. But I've had great manager after great manager who has supported, just to the point you made earlier about courses and that the justification you get from your knowledge from them, supporting me on course after course. And like, honestly, sometimes it makes me a bit emotional to think about like, the way I feel about work, how lucky I feel to get to do this job. But it's been through great management and people pushing me and supporting me and believing in me that's helped build some of that confidence that might not have naturally existed.
I agree.
Yeah, and something I'd just love to add, I think, as we were talking earlier, about you were saying is like your responsibility as much as your employer's, and actually something that you can do there is if you feel like, especially if you're in a role where your direct manager isn't your skill set or where you want to go, get a mentor, get a coach.
I am the biggest advocate of them, Sarah, I'm telling you, because there's not... I think I find it easier to have impartial conversations with someone that does not directly pay my wages or like is my direct line manager or something like that, which is why I have people that I deem as like a mentor or whatever. I was really lucky when I first joined Manpower Group that my line manager was 2 years older than me, and he put me in a lot of rooms that I wouldn't have been able to be in because he obviously has some lived experience. He sees himself in me in some way and appreciated those opportunities being presented to him. Obviously, that opens up a whole other worms of like, I shouldn't be in this room or whatever. But I do think it's important to have people that see something in you, but also seek that out in someone else. So I really like Megan's attitude towards things, for example. She knows when to take her job really, really seriously, but also knows when not to. Yeah. And I hope I become someone like that rather than a manager that maybe does play on like a little bit of insecurity, because that happens, Yeah. So there's so many external factors for a young person in their career that a bad manager or someone who doesn't really believe in you can really have a serious impact. And what's that crazy stat? Like, you spend more time with your line manager than you do with your partner or most of your friends or your family. So we need someone, or if you are a manager, if any managers listening, I think you need to recognise that responsibility that you have on your employees. I don't know if there's anything I've said there that you absolutely disagree with or agree with, but I'm going to open the floor.
No, I think I agree with you. I think you're right. And I think that's a great shout to any managers that are listening. Like, recognise the impact that you have on your team and that the right approach. I had a manager, still friends with her now because she's absolutely brilliant, who would always talk about supporting and developing you, but also like being happy, and, like seeking your happiness, and actually would support you if that meant it wasn't necessarily within her team. So the impact a manager can have in somebody's confidence and abilities and like belief in themselves is huge.
Yeah, like I can't wait to manage people. I'm telling you, I really, really can. I do struggle whenever you see or hear of people that don't have like a supportive manager, because I think that is the whole part of being in a managerial role. But circling everything back to imposter syndrome again, do you think, or would you agree that social media now has an impact on how we feel about our work and maybe adds to a little bit of imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To some
straight yes. Like, well, yes, full stop.
Yes and no. There's a good and a bad with it. I think the bad is that obviously it is, we talk about a lot all the time, everyone's talking about it, is that comparison to people living their best life and their perfect reel of probably about 10% of what's actually happening. That's the negative that can massively make you feel like everyone else really knows what they're doing, which can really make that sense that you're not really obvious. But equally, if you follow the right people, it's like having a good manager and a bad manager. Like, there's loads of people that you can follow that give you loads of educational tips, that really tell you to step out your comfort zone, that help you with those reframes. Mel Robbins talks a lot about imposter syndrome and the reframes of stop telling yourself you've got imposter syndrome, which I love as something called a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. Is something we do a lot in our coaching, is change the language, stop saying I've got imposter syndrome, because you're never going to feel confident if you're constantly telling yourself that. So if you follow the right people on socials, it can help. But you've got to know yourself well enough to know if you're someone that compares negatively or positively. And equally, sometimes for me, it's okay to unfollow someone if they don't serve you. Like, you don't have to. You can, you know, some people it's taking it off. I've just bought a brick that is something that stops me going on socials.
Okay, great.
So I put it in another room, so I have to go and get that if I want to go on, because scrolling. But yeah, you can follow some amazing people that make you feel great and empower you. But you've got to know. So I've got some clients, and I won't let them go on and compare. Sometimes you can use it for inspiration, but some people, they just like feel that imposter syndrome, or they're kind of like negatively comparing themselves too much. That I sort of don't really recommend that.
Yeah, I would totally agree. At the end of the day, you're responsible for curating your own algorithm, I think. So you have, you know, choice, free will in who you follow. And yeah, it can be used for good. I mean, that reframe that I shared earlier, that came from somebody on social media, because she's a positive influence. Yeah. You know, she talks a lot about self-belief, confidence, and that's, so I think it can really help as long as you're using it in a positive way. And I think if you've got enough self-awareness to kind of recognise when it's not positive for you, using the tips like you've said about locking it away, setting time limits, unfollowing. You don't know anybody to follow. And if it's actually somebody that's in your circle that you think might realise or notice that you've unfollowed them, mute them.
Yeah, mute them. Best thing about that mute button is...
I use it a lot.
And like, I see it all the time. Like, you know, sometimes I go on Facebook and I'll see like boys that I went to school with that are, you know, sharing that meme of like a lion talking about hustle culture and, you know, like all that sort of stuff. Like, that is, it's okay not to want to hustle. It's like absolutely okay to be comfortable in the job that you're doing and not want to jump 20 rings up the ladder. And half the times those fellas are really doing nothing of note, you know what I mean? So it's all completely smoke and mirrors. I think what you both said about following positive people or things like that, I think is definitely a really important thing to do.
Welcome to the Career Changemaker podcast, where we focus on owning your career journey and making impact through the work that you do. Whether you're looking to pivot, transition into leadership, or reimagine your career completely, this podcast is for you. We'll unpack career development strategies, leadership insights, and the mindset shifts needed to thrive in your career. Being a career changemaker means taking control and shaping your professional path with intention. I'm your host, lawyer turned career and leadership development specialist, Janine Esbrand. So if you're ready for candid conversations that are going to help you grow, keep listening.
Sarah, I'm going to come to you with a different question. At what point when you're dealing with your clients or you're meeting people and you're talking about imposter syndrome and sort of like those feelings of like self-worth at work or in life, at what point does that become, do you need to speak to a professional? You know, does that verge into like potentially like a bit of poor mental health or something like that? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. At what stage is it worth reaching out to someone?
Yeah, of course.
I suppose the obvious one is when it starts to affect you at work. But really, I would nip it in the bud before then, if possible. So if you have any concerns that maybe you're not applying for something because you think that it's too far out your reach, or you're not sure if you could do it, or you'd feel those sensations of like lack of confidence and stuff, I would probably get in there so that you can, if you're lucky enough to like move into that role, or if you've earned that, if you've earned that new role of going in and working on your confidence to start with, and then a combination of coaching, mentoring, therapy, all of those things can help depending on where you want to go with it and what kind of angle you want to take with it.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have anything to add to that, Megan?
No, I think you've covered it really, and it's about recognising, like you say, which tool. Like I did a psychometric test a couple of weeks ago and got my assessment through, and it was really interesting because I've always like been aware that I'm a bit of a perfectionist and that I like to do well, but it came through that I've got like this real fear of failing, and even though they are opposite, and it might sound that I should have known that, I just never made that connection of it. It was like a real light bulb when I read it. So it's something I've talked to my manager about, and I've got my first coaching session on that tomorrow, because it's how is that holding me back? You know, if I'm staying small or staying quiet because I don't want to get something wrong, and I do recognise that in myself sometimes. Like I feel like, I won't speak up, or so it's recognising which of the tools I think is the right one in any one scenario. The coach I'm working with, I worked with him before, and he's absolutely brilliant. I'd say he's life-changing, actually. And that in our very first one that we set up, he was like, coaching and therapy are very, very similar and they will get you the same outcome. The difference is therapy, you'll work out why you behave that way, why we don't get into that in coaching. Yeah.
that really
coaching
makes
moving
sense.
forwards.
Really makes sense, and best luck with that.
Thank
I think
you.
that's really good for listeners to hear that, like, because I see you as someone that I respect that's really jumped up the ladder and is in like a, you know, really, really, you said it, like your dream job. So I think it's important for people to know that leaders do also need coaching and they do also need support. But putting a pin in that, I want to come back to something that you said, and you corrected yourself whenever you talked about luck.
Yeah.
And earning something, and that is something that I have probably confused a lot over the years. There is, of course, an element, I'm really lucky to be doing what I'm doing. I feel really lucky to be in these moments. But I walked into this room. I also had those meetings. I put myself in those positions. You know, you engage with someone that is like helping you do something, or you actively have. I think earning something is an extension on the luck. I think there is a bit of a juxtaposition there, but I understand why you moved away from that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you agree with what I've said?
Yeah. The moment it came out, I was like, oh, this is the opposite of everything I tell my clients. It's like, it's not luck. You work hard. You hate it when anyone ever says that about you. I think at the moment, to some degree, there is a bit of you're in the right place at the right time with some things. And I think that's where I was getting at to some degree. It's that it's an internal move. So you've been exposed to something, and to some degree, yes, you've earned it. To some degree, it's place and time.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where I was getting to, because I've got so many clients at the moment who are doing like job applications, and some of it is you've got the time and energy and you're working with a coach to do that, and so it's time and place, not luck.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone. I want to keep all that bit in, please, producers. And again, to go back to something that you mentioned, I spoke about my new role, but in the role I'm exiting, I work as an early career specialist in the automotive industry. So mainly what I'm doing is advertising roles and massive graduate recruitment campaigns for a client, and we always have conversations with hiring managers about why you can't close roles early. And the reason is because men, I don't know the stats, but I'll get them. Men typically punch above their weight in this world when it comes to applying for jobs, and they'll match with 50% of the job description and they'll say, I've got it, right? Young girls typically struggle with that bit of disbelief, or they won't skills match in the same way as typically a graduate male would, or an undergraduate male. So we always are having to tell hiring managers, you can't close anything early, because 9 times out of 10 female candidates will wait till the very last minute because they are likely to be more unsure. I'm really going to get data to back this up in my statement. I'm not just being colloquial, but that's something that I've recognised in my career in recruitment, if that makes sense.
60 and 100% is the research you're
Is it?
Yes.
It's not. My background's academic research.
Right.
So I'm a bit like, it's not totally backed up, but it was from an internal. I did some research about it. It's not 100% backed up as a stat, though.
Right.
Is the only problem.
Cool.
But it's 60 and 100% that people quote. In fact, I used to quote it quite a lot. Yeah, there's different counteracting research now about who will apply for what, interestingly.
That's good. I would like to hear that. To both of you, do you have any advice on how to stay motivated with our goals if we may suffer with a little bit of imposter syndrome?
The one bit I think is have someone on your side, like have a hype buddy, have someone that you call in Ibiza, like, you know what I mean? Like someone like that is always going to help you stay, because accountability is huge. Like it's what keeps coaches in jobs. It's, you said you're going to do that. Did you do that?
Yeah, of course.
And so when you don't feel motivated, especially when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, especially when you're trying to move into those rooms and those spaces, have someone that's saying, what are you going to do? When are you going to do that? What does that look like? And then I'm going to ask you in a week how that went.
Yeah.
So that you're doing it because you know they're going to ask you, rather than no accountability for, well, if I don't do it, it doesn't matter, so I stay quiet.
Yeah, I'd say, it sounds a bit cheesy this as well, I know, but goals, it's a journey, not a destination. So actually, what can you celebrate on the journey? And to the coach that I just mentioned from earlier, one of the biggest things that I learned from him is reflection and the accountability from reflection. So whether you are being held accountable through a friend or a coach, or whether it's that you hold yourself accountable by reflecting on your journey, what you've learned, how a situation went, could you have done it differently? I found like once I got into a great habit with reflecting, it almost became like self-coaching on situations and what I could have done differently. And yeah.
I just wanted to add to that, reflection is one of the other things that you can do, but not only to say, oh, what can I do differently, is also like giving yourself a pat on the back, ticking it off. Even if you write down that you're going to speak up in that meeting, write it somewhere and then tick it off. You get a little dopamine hit. You have that feel-good hormone. And then also you, especially for high achievers, you're always going forward. You're always looking at that next thing. So actually reflecting and going, oh, I did that.
Yeah.
And it didn't go too badly. I've got a client at the moment, and each week we set her a goal. Have that difficult conversation, step out of your comfort zone, go and talk to someone new, all of those things. And each week we just regroup and I go, did it go okay? She's like, yeah, fine. I'm like, oh yeah, so just let's give some reflection and time to recognizing that you did it, and no one judged you, no one did call you out. And that's where you build that evidence as well, by reflecting and saying, oh, the world didn't crumble like I thought it might.
Yeah, exactly. It's not as catastrophic as it seems at the time. A couple of quick fire questions as we move to the end of the podcast. Fake it till you make it. What do you think about that statement?
I think you have to, as we were talking about, you have to challenge yourself.
Right.
If you sit in the same place and just think it's a mindset game,
Yeah.
you need to actually go out there and practice it. But you have to do that in conjunction with the mindset, the reframing that we've talked about, the inner work, the having the mentor, the hype buddy, the coach, whatever it is. Both of those together, not one in isolation.
Yeah. And yourself, what do you believe?
I'm not sure if you describe this as fake it till you make it, but like one of my tips would also be, and I know this won't be for everybody, but keep exposing yourself to it. I hate myself for it when I'm walking to whatever it is going to be, and like I can't breathe very deeply and my hands are
therapy
shaking.
is a therapy.
But expose yourself to the things that make you nervous, because
100%.
they will hold less power over time. So is that faking it till you make it? I suppose it is.
Yeah.
Expose yourself to it, yeah.
Something I have started to do recently, and this is a bit of a tip, is obviously we talk about AI a lot, but if there's something I don't understand, or something I want to talk about that I don't get, or if I'm relaying something to a consultant, I will tell AI to give me something complex and speak to me as if I am 18, and need something to be really, really palatable. So that's how I fake it at work sometimes, if I don't exactly understand what I'm talking about. So there is ways, but I don't think that someone should go throughout their career pretending as well, because that I think is detrimental, if that makes sense,
Yeah. Depends what you're pretending, because if you're pretending to be confident,
does that turn into confidence?
does that then turn into confidence?
Does it? It's a good question. Good question for listeners. Next, what do you think the consequences could be if we don't sort of overcome imposter syndrome?
I think your world stays small. Like you don't grow in your comfort zone. And like we said earlier, with that growth comes satisfaction, pride, all these positive feelings and emotions. And I think if you stay small, if you don't speak up and you don't like kind of achieve your full potential, I think your world stays small. And I think you'll probably start to have the total opposite types of feelings of, that you're not contributing. Is it worth it? Are you even doing a good job at work? So while it's not nice to have the feelings, I think if you work through them, it's worth the end goal.
Yeah, and if you both, this is my last question and something I want to leave listeners with. If you could speak now to someone directly who's suffering from imposter syndrome or is feeling the multitude of feelings that we've just discussed, speak directly to them. What would your first piece of advice be?
To talk to someone else about it.
Yeah.
Because when you're in your own head, there's nothing worse than it just ruminating, sitting with you, and you'll get probably a massive sense of relief just voicing it out, realising that your problems are probably quite normal. How you feel is probably felt by most people in the team, that everyone else probably also feels like this as well. You're not the only one. Not everyone sits there and actually does know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I'd agree, because it's the connection that comes with being vulnerable. We held an imposter syndrome session a couple of years ago at work. I led it with one of our managing directors, and he talked about his own feelings of imposter syndrome. And as a white middle-aged man who was a managing director, for him to come on a call and for people to realise if he can feel it, it's so normal. Somebody actually emailed me saying that they'd had to go off camera because they were sat there in floods of tears at realising how normal they actually were for the feelings that they were having. And so I just think, to build on your point about that, talk to someone. It's the connection that you'll get from being vulnerable, and you'll realise that other people feel the same way that you do.
Beautiful. Megan, Sarah, thank you both so much for the time we've just spent together. I had a really, really good time. Honestly, I love talking about this topic. I couldn't have had probably better guests to talk about it with as well. I think we've bounced around like a lot of really, really good points and definitely some like helpful tips and things for people to take away. Sarah, I'd love to know where the listeners could follow you and where they can hear more about the great work that you do.
Yes, mainly on Instagram, Achieving Ambition or Sarah Burrows Coaching, and then LinkedIn as well, obviously. And then just my website's got loads of stuff, blogs, resources, podcast links, all that sort of good stuff as well.
Yeah. I'm Megan.
LinkedIn mainly, really, unless you want to see pictures of Ibiza on my Instagram.
You would, yeah. I would say for anyone in the Manpower Group business, if you are struggling or you want to speak to someone who is down to earth and will tell you something in a really palatable, non-patronising way, please reach out to Megan Corless. She is gorgeous to have a conversation with. And that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so, so much, Megan and Sarah, for joining me. I absolutely adored that session. To our listeners, as always, if you're in the market for a new role, why not check out Brook Street online? There may just be a dream job waiting there for you. And don't forget, if you enjoyed it, share it with your friends or your colleagues. You can listen to us where you listen to your podcasts. Thank you, and see you later.